You begin by resting your attention on something small and ordinary. Perhaps it is the air touching your skin, or the faint hum that lives inside a quiet room. Nothing dramatic is happening. Nothing needs to happen. And yet, even here, in this soft pause, change is already at work. You notice how nothing truly holds its shape forever. The warmth in your hands slowly fades. A sound, once clear, dissolves into the background. A scent that first arrived with confidence becomes faint, then nearly imaginary. The world is not frozen. It is flowing, always flowing, even when you call it still. Imagine a cup of warm tea beside you. You do not see motion, yet motion is there. The faster particles inside the tea gently share their energy with the cooler air. Tiny collisions pass warmth outward, like whispered messages. The tea does not decide to cool. It simply follows a quiet rule written into nature: energy spreads when it can. You sit with this image for a moment. Warmth drifting outward. No urgency. No command. Just a tendency. This tendency has a name in science. It is called entropy. But tonight, you do not need the mathematics of it. You can feel it instead. Entropy is the soft preference of the universe to loosen tight arrangements. It is the habit of things to spread, to share, to explore more possible positions. Think of a neatly folded blanket. Smooth edges. Clean lines. Then imagine using it every night. Without trying, the folds relax. The shape becomes less strict. Not ruined, just more open. More varied. More possible in its arrangements. That gentle relaxing is a small, friendly example of entropy at work. You are not watching destruction. You are watching permission. Consider footprints in fresh snow. When they first appear, their edges are sharp and proud. Each ridge is clear. But as time passes, wind and sunlight soften them. Crystals sublimate. Edges blur. The pattern returns to a more even surface. The detailed arrangement gives way to a broader one. Entropy is not an enemy of beauty. It is a painter that prefers gradients over sharp lines. You breathe slowly, and as you breathe, your body also participates in this quiet drift. Heat leaves your skin. Moisture leaves your breath. Cells rearrange molecules with careful chemistry, keeping your inner order alive by releasing disorder outward. You are not separate from this process. You are a graceful participant in it. In scientific language, entropy measures how many ways something can be arranged without changing its overall appearance. But instead of numbers, you can picture rooms. One room is perfectly organized, every book aligned, every object squared. Another room is comfortably lived in, books open, pillows shifted, cups placed where hands last rested. There are far more ways for the lived-in room to exist than the perfectly ordered one. Nature gently prefers the room with more possible arrangements. This preference is not rushed. It does not shove. It invites. You may notice that this drift toward openness often feels like time itself. You remember the past as structured and fixed, like a photograph already printed. You feel the future as unwritten, flexible, full of possible layouts. Entropy is one of the reasons time feels like it moves forward and never backward. The ink spreads, but it does not gather itself back into the pen. Listen to the fading of a sound. Strike a soft bell in your imagination. At first, the vibration is organized a clear tone. Then the vibration shares itself with the air, the walls, your body. The energy disperses into countless tiny motions. The single tone becomes silence, but the energy is not gone. It is simply distributed too widely to hear. Spread is not disappearance. It is dilution. Now imagine a drop of ink falling into water. At first, it holds together like a small galaxy. Then threads extend outward. Swirls form. Soon the color is everywhere, evenly shared. You never see the ink gather itself back into a single drop. Not because it is forbidden, but because it is unimaginably unlikely. There are too many mixed arrangements and too few unmixed ones. Entropy is the poetry of likelihood. As you rest here, you may feel a softness in this idea. The universe is not constantly breaking, it is relaxing. Tight differences become gentle gradients. Sharp contrasts become smooth transitions. Like muscles unclenching after effort. Even mountains participate. Rock faces crack, grains loosen, slopes soften. Over long ages, sharp peaks become rolling hills. Structure eases into spread. The process is slow enough to feel eternal, yet steady enough to be trusted. You are surrounded by these quiet transformations. A battery losing charge. A perfume fading in air. A ripple flattening on a pond. Each is a small story of energy moving from concentrated to shared. None of this requires supervision. No hidden hand pushes it forward moment by moment. It happens because, at the microscopic level, there are more ways to be spread out than to be tightly gathered. Chance itself leans in that direction. And still, within this universal drift, islands of order appear. You are one of them. A temporary, beautiful arrangement holding shape for a while. Like a whirlpool in a river, you are made of flow, yet recognizable as form. This is not a contradiction. It is a balance. Your body maintains its patterns by exchanging energy with the world. You release heat. You breathe out molecules. You take in new ones. Order inside, spread outside. A gentle bargain with entropy that keeps you alive and warm. For now, just notice the kindness and the pace. Entropy does not rush you. It works across moments so small they cannot be felt individually. Only their chorus is visible. You let your thoughts follow this chorus. Outward. Softer. Whiter. A cooling cup. A fading echo. A smoothing footprint. A loosening fold. These are not endings. They are transitions from tight stories to broader ones. And as you rest inside this understanding, a question begins to glow at the edge of your awareness. If everything drifts from tight order toward wider possibility, what does that mean for direction itself, and how this quiet drift becomes the arrow that carries time forward? You begin with a simple picture: a quiet room, gently arranged. Books aligned. Surfaces clear. Objects resting in deliberate places. Your eyes move across it and feel a certain calm, because order is easy for the mind to hold. It is like a melody with predictable notes. Now you imagine living in this room for many days. You sit, you read, you place a cup down without ceremony. A page remains open. A chair shifts slightly from its angle. Nothing dramatic happens. No storm passes through. And yet, slowly, the arrangement relaxes. The room is not ruined. It is simply unfolding into more possible shapes. This is where you begin to feel what scientists mean by order and disorder, not as judgment, not as good or bad, but as tightness and looseness in arrangement. Order is when there are few ways for things to be arranged and still look the same. Disorder is when there are many ways. You hold this idea like a smooth stone in your thoughts. Few ways. Many ways. Picture a brand new deck of cards, fresh from its box, sorted by suit and number. There is almost only one way for it to be perfectly ordered like this. Now imagine shuffling it gently. Then again. Then again. Very quickly, the cards reach a state where their order looks mixed. But more importantly, there are countless mixed arrangements that all look equally shuffled. Order is rare. Mixed patterns are abundant. Nature, moving by chance and contact and motion, tends to drift toward what is abundant. You do not need force for this. Only freedom. Imagine a snowflake landing on your sleeve. Its crystal branches are precise, almost architectural. A frozen moment of symmetry. But your warmth flows into it immediately. Molecules begin to vibrate faster. Bonds loosen. The branches soften, then collapse into a drop. The intricate pattern gives way to a simpler, more flexible shape. It feels like loss if you focus only on the structure. But it is also a gain in possibility. The water molecules now have far more ways to arrange themselves than they did when locked in crystal form. Entropy is not the celebration of mess. It is the expansion of available arrangements. You breathe in slowly and consider how often this happens without being noticed. Sugar dissolving into tea. Perfume spreading through air. Cream swirling into coffee. Each begins concentrated, localized, specific. Then motion invites spreading. The pattern becomes less tight, more shared. There is a softness to this sharing. In scientific language, order often means low entropy, and disorder means high entropy. But tonight you translate gently. Low entropy is a narrow hallway. High entropy is an open field. One is constrained. The other allows wandering paths. Neither is morally better. They are simply different landscapes of possibility. You can feel this even in sound. A single pure tone from a tuning fork is highly ordered, one frequency, one clean vibration. When it echoes through a room, reflects, overlaps, and fades into layered noise, the sound field becomes more complex, more spread, more entropic. Not broken, broadened. Your mind, too, has these states. A single focused thought is like a narrow hallway. A drifting, dreamlike state is like an open field. As you grow sleepy, your thinking becomes more associative, less linear. Not worse, just more spacious. You are experiencing a rise in mental entropy, and it feels like release. Now imagine a puzzle freshly solved. Every piece locked into place, image complete. There is only one correct solution among thousands of wrong ones. If you gently shake the table, pieces separate. The picture dissolves. Many new arrangements appear, almost all of them unsolved. The solved state is special because it is rare. The unsolved states are common because they are numerous. Nature statistically favors what is numerous. Not by intention, by arithmetic of possibility. This is why scientists connect entropy with probability. The most probable state is the one with the most microscopic arrangements behind it. When energy and matter move freely, they almost always wander toward the states that can be achieved in many ways instead of few. You can think of it like paths through a forest. One narrow trail versus a wide meadow of footprints. If walkers move randomly, most will end up in the meadow, simply because it is easier to enter from many directions. Entropy is the meadow. Importantly, disorder does not mean lack of pattern at every scale. When milk mixes into coffee, beautiful swirls appear, temporary structures blooming during the spreading. Entropy can create intermediate beauty while overall differences even out. The journey towards spread often paints with elegance. You let that be comforting. The universe does not move from order to ugliness. It moves from tightness to richness of arrangement. Consider heat again. When one side of an object is hot and the other cool, that is an ordered energy pattern, uneven, directional. Heat flow reduces that difference. Temperature evens out. The energy distribution becomes more uniform. More ways exist to be evenly warm than sharply divided into hot and cold regions. Uniformity is statistically generous. And yet, you notice something subtle. Even as local patterns loosen, new patterns can appear elsewhere. A stirred atmosphere forms clouds. Flowing rivers carve branching paths. Spreading does not erase structure everywhere at once. It changes the rules about how structure must be maintained. To keep tight order, work is required. Energy must be guided. Boundaries must be held. Without that guidance, arrangements relax into broader sets. You feel this in daily life. A garden grows wild without tending. A schedule dissolves without attention. A melody drifts if no one keeps time. Maintenance is a kind of local resistance to entropy, not a fight, but a shaping influence. You are not separate from this shaping. When you tidy a desk or align your breath, you are gently pushing matter and motion into narrower arrangements for a while. You are making a small island of low entropy in a wide sea of higher possibility. And islands are allowed. As you grow more relaxed, you sense that order and disorder are not enemies. They are dance partners. Tight patterns form, loosen, and form again elsewhere. What matters is the flow between them, the unfolding. You rest with that word now. Unfolding. Not collapse. Not decay. Unfolding. You begin by noticing how naturally you feel the direction of time. You never confuse yesterday with tomorrow. You never remember the future and anticipate the past. Even in dreams, time seems to flow along a path, not scatter in all directions. It moves like a river, and you float within it. This feeling is so familiar that it rarely seems mysterious. But tonight, in this quiet space, you gently turn it in your hands and look again. Why does time have a direction at all? Imagine watching a video of a glass slipping from a table and shattering on the floor. You instantly know which way the film is running. Forward looks natural, fragments scatter, bounce, slide, come to rest. But if you play it backward, the pieces leap together, assemble midair, and land upright on the table. You feel the wrongness immediately, like hearing a melody sung in reverse. Your mind recognizes the arrow without effort. This arrow of time is deeply connected to entropy, to the way arrangements tend to unfold into more numerous possibilities. When the glass breaks, the number of possible fragment arrangements is enormous compared to the single intact form. Motion carries the system from a rare state into common ones. Common is forward. Rare is backward. You breathe slowly and picture a drop of dye spreading through water again. Forward in time, the color disperses into soft clouds, then uniform tint. Backward in time, the tint gathers itself into a tight drop. The laws of motion at the smallest scale allow both directions, like equations that do not prefer left or right. And yet, in the world you experience, only one direction happens. Because probability leans that way, like a hill with a gentle slope. At microscopic scales, among atoms and molecules, collisions are reversible. If you could track every particle perfectly and reverse every velocity, motion would retrace its steps. But in practice, with countless particles interacting, the reversed path is unimaginably specific. One tiny deviation ruins the rewind. The forward spread has endless nearby paths. The backward gathering has almost none. Entropy makes forward easy and backward fragile. You can feel this in simple acts. Stir cream into coffee. Watch the pale ribbons curl and vanish into tan. To unstir it would require guiding each molecule along a precise path, like directing 1,000,000,000,000 dancers to step backward in perfect synchrony. Not forbidden, just overwhelmingly unlikely. Time's arrow is probability made visible. You notice how memory fits into this picture. You remember lower entropy states more often: the intact glass, the unshuffled deck, the unopened letter. As entropy increases, detailed information about the past arrangement becomes smeared into many microscopic motions. The details are not destroyed, but they are dispersed beyond practical recovery. Memory needs structure to hold on to. Entropy loosens structure. This is why the past feels fixed. Its records are written in stable traces, photographs, fossils, neural connections in your brain. The future has no such records yet. It exists as a cloud of possibilities. You walk into that cloud one moment at a time. Consider sound again. A handclap sends a sharp wave through air. The wave reflects, scatters, converts into tiny thermal motions. Soon the organized vibration is gone, replaced by faint warmth spread through the room. You never hear scattered heat spontaneously gather into a clap. The equations allow it. The odds bury it. Forward is the direction of spreading influence. You let your thoughts soften around this. Time is not a separate engine pushing events along. It is how change feels when entropy increases. The direction of increasing entropy and the direction you call future are the same direction, described in two languages, one of physics, one of experience. There is something comforting here. The river does not need steering. It flows because flowing is statistically natural. You imagine footprints on a beach. Crisp at first, then softened by wind and shifting grains. Each hour adds tiny random rearrangements. To reverse the process, to have the sand leap back into sharp ridges, would require coordination across countless grains. The beach prefers blur to precision. Precision is delicate. Blur is robust. This does not mean structure cannot appear. You have already seen that local order can grow when energy flows through a system, like frost crystals forming where storms organizing in the sky. But even these formations export entropy outward. They are local eddies in a larger downstream current. The arrow still holds. You turn inward and notice your own sense of duration. Your body runs on chemical reactions that release energy gradients, structured fuels becoming more distributed products. Each heartbeat, each nerve signal, each breath participates in forward-biased processes. Your biology is a clock built from entropy-producing steps. You are carried by thermodynamic time. There is a gentle poetry in this. The reason you can experience moments in sequence is tied to energy differences gradually evening out. If the universe were already perfectly uniform, no gradients, no flows, nothing would happen. No processes. No thoughts. No stories. Time would have no texture. Change requires imbalance. Direction requires entropy. You rest with that idea like a lantern beside you. The glow is soft but steady. Now imagine a movie of the night sky where stars gradually unburn, gathering their light back into tight cores, sending heat from cold space into hotter surfaces. You would sense again that something is reversed. Your intuition about time is really an intuition about entropy trends, learned from a lifetime inside them. From your first warm breath to this present one, you have never witnessed large-scale entropy spontaneously decrease without work being done. Your nervous system has built a compass from that experience. Forward means more spread. Backward would mean more gathered. And yet, at the deepest level, the laws remain almost symmetrical. This is the quiet wonder. The asymmetry you feel is not imposed by force but emerges from counting from how many arrangements exist on each side of a transformation. Time's arrow is written in arithmetic more than command. You let the arithmetic fade back into imagery. A hill of possibilities. A valley of rarity. A rolling ball chooses the valley because there are more ways to be there. You begin by imagining that you can become very small. Not just smaller than a room or a grain of sand, but smaller than dust, smaller than cells, smaller than anything you have ever seen. You drift downward in scale until solid objects no longer look solid at all. They look spacious. What once seemed firm and continuous is now a loose gathering, tiny particles separated by gaps, each in motion. Nothing is truly still here. Even in a quiet stone, even in a sleeping body, there is movement like a soft, endless murmur. You float among these particles like a calm observer in a slow-moving crowd. This is where heat lives, not as a substance, not as a glowing color, but as motion. When scientists speak of temperature, they are really speaking about how energetically these tiny particles are moving, vibrating, rotating, sliding past one another. Faster motion feels warm. Slower motion feels cool. Temperature is a speed story. Picture two rooms filled with dancers. In one room, the dancers sway gently, barely stepping. In the other, they spin and leap and cross paths quickly. The second room is warmer not because of flame, but because of motion intensity. Heat is the choreography of atoms. You watch a single particle vibrate in place, jostled by its neighbors. It never rests completely. Even near absolute zero, the coldest temperature physically possible, motion does not fully disappear. There is always a faint quantum trembling, like the last whisper of a song that cannot entirely end. Stillness, at the deepest level, is almost still, never perfectly so. Now you imagine touching something warm with something cool. A warm mug meeting your cooler hand. At the boundary, faster-moving particles collide with slower-moving ones. With each collision, a little motion is shared. Speeds adjust. The energetic dancers teach the calmer ones new steps. No particle plans this. No message is announced. It is simply contact and exchange. Heat flow is motion sharing itself. You drift through this exchange and notice how local it is. Each transfer happens through touch, particle to particle, bump to bump. Yet from countless tiny bumps emerges a smooth experience, warmth spreading through your palm. The microscopic crowd produces a macroscopic feeling. Large sensations are built from tiny nudges. There are 3 gentle ways heat travels. You meet the first already, conduction, where motion passes through direct contact, like a line of people passing a candle flame carefully from hand to hand. Slow, steady, neighbor to neighbor. The second is convection, where whole groups move and carry their warmth with them. Like warm air rising, cool air sinking, forming soft circulating currents. Instead of passing motion along a line, the crowd itself drifts, bringing its energy to new places. The third is radiation, more subtle, more elegant, where energy travels as light itself, no contact required. Even across empty space, warmth can arrive on waves, the way sunlight reaches your skin from far away. 3 paths. 1 principle. Motion redistributes. You rest inside this understanding. Heat is not a thing you pour. It is a pattern you spread. Consider a metal spoon in hot soup. Soon the handle grows warm. From far away it seems the heat traveled smoothly along the spoon like water in a pipe. But from your tiny vantage, you see the truth, a jitter passed from particle to particle, each one nudging the next into livelier vibration. A relay of restlessness. Now imagine a sealed box divided into 2 halves. One side holds fast particles, warm and lively. The other holds slow ones, cool and gentle. When the divider is lifted, the 2 groups mingle. Collisions happen. Speeds average out. Soon there is one shared temperature throughout. Not because balance was commanded, but because mixing creates more possible shared arrangements than separation. Entropy smiles on sharing. You notice something soothing here. Warmth always flows from warmer regions to cooler ones, never the reverse by itself. Not because of a strict prohibition, but because there are vastly more microscopic ways for energy to spread out than to gather itself back into a hotspot. Direction emerges from counting again. Probability writes the thermal script. You float through air now, watching molecules dart and collide. Their speeds are not identical. Some move faster, some slower, forming a graceful distribution, a spread of energies like notes across a piano. Temperature is the average song, not any single note. Even randomness has shape. When air warms, the average speed rises, collisions push outward more strongly, and the air expands. That is why warm air is lighter, why it rises, why breezes form. Weather itself is a planetary poem written in molecular motion differences. You let your awareness widen slightly and see that pressure, too, is just motion meeting boundaries. Countless particle taps against a surface create force. No single tap matters much. Together they become wind on a sail, breath in your lungs, lift under a wing. Crowds create power through accumulation. There is comfort in knowing that warmth in your body is not mysterious. It is millions upon millions of microscopic movements, fueled by chemistry, guided by structure, shared through contact. You are a warm constellation of motion, briefly holding shape. A living thermal pattern. And yet, these invisible crowds never stop exchanging energy. Even now, your warmth leaks gently outward into the room. The room leaks into the walls. The walls into the night air. Differences soften. Gradients relax. The dance trends toward evenness, step by patient step. No drama. Only drift. You sense how this connects to the arrow you felt before. Direction appears wherever motion differences exist. Heat flows downhill in temperature space, just as water flows downhill in height. Not forced, simply favored. Downhill is numerous. Uphill is rare. As drowsiness grows, the microscopic dance feels less like mechanics and more like a lullaby, endless, delicate, cooperative. A crowd where no one is in charge, yet patterns still emerge. A shared choreography without a choreographer. And as you watch these invisible travelers exchange their motion in countless collisions, a new curiosity rises softly. If every tiny encounter carries chance, variation, and spread, then perhaps the deeper language beneath heat and entropy is not certainty at all, but probability. You begin with a gentle thought: not everything is decided in advance. Beneath the steady shapes you see around you, there is a quiet flutter of uncertainty. Not confusion, but possibility. The universe, at its smallest scales, does not march like a strict parade. It murmurs like a crowd. You return in your imagination to the tiny world of particles. Each one moves, collides, changes direction. If you try to predict the exact path of one particle over a long time, your certainty fades quickly. Too many encounters. Too many influences. Too many slight variations. And yet, when you step back, large patterns become dependable. This is the soft magic of probability. Imagine standing above a vast field in light rain. Each raindrop falls in a slightly different place, guided by tiny air currents you cannot see. No single drop is predictable far in advance. But you can still say, with confidence, how what the ground will become. You can predict the average, even when you cannot predict the individual. Nature often works this way, unpredictable in the small, reliable in the large. Entropy is deeply connected to this idea. It is built not from single outcomes, but from counting many possible ones. When scientists say a state has high entropy, they mean there are many microscopic ways to arrange the details while keeping the same overall appearance. Many hidden stories, one visible result. Picture a jar filled with red and blue beads, perfectly separated, red on one side, blue on the other. That arrangement is very specific. Very special. Now imagine gently shaking the jar again and again. Soon the colors are mixed throughout. From the outside, the mixed state looks ordinary. But underneath, there are astronomically many distinct bead-by-bead arrangements that all look mixed. Mixed is common because mixed has many versions. Separated is rare because it has few. Probability is like a landscape of arrangement counts. Valleys where many configurations live. Peaks where only a few can stand. Motion tends to carry systems toward the valleys not by intention, but by simple combinational abundance. You breathe slowly and let this feel intuitive rather than technical. If you wander randomly through a city with many wide streets and only a few narrow alleys, you will spend more time on the wide streets. Not because they are better, but because they are easier to enter from many directions. High probability is a wide street. Low probability is a narrow alley. Now you imagine flipping a coin once. The result is uncertain. Flip it 1,000 times, and a pattern appears close to half heads, half tails. The law of large numbers, a gentle statistical truth, says that large collections smooth out randomness into stable ratios. The universe is the largest collection you know. That is why thermodynamic laws feel firm and directional. They are not rigid commands imposed from above. They are statistical certainties emerging from enormous numbers of tiny events. With enough participants, chance produces consistency. Crowds create law from randomness. You return to heat spreading in a room. Each collision between particles transfers energy in a slightly different way. No master plan coordinates them. But with trillions upon trillions of collisions, the average effect is beautifully predictable. Temperatures equalize, gradients fade. Probability becomes experience prevention of surprise. There is another gentle layer here. Probability does not forbid unlikely events. It simply makes them scarce. It is not impossible for air molecules in a room to all drift into one corner for a moment, leaving the rest nearly empty. The equations allow it. But the number of balanced arrangements is so vastly greater that you will almost certainly never see the air self-empty your side of the room. Possible is not the same as expected. Entropy measures this expectedness. High entropy states are overwhelmingly expected because they correspond to overwhelming counts of microscopic arrangements. Low entropy states are fragile jewels, real, but statistically lonely. You hold that phrase softly, statistically lonely. Now imagine a password lock with many wheels. Each wheel has 10 digits. One exact combination opens it. There are millions that do not. If you spin randomly, you almost always land in the locked set, simply because it is so much larger. Order often resembles the one opening code. Disorder resembles the vast sea of wrong ones. Not wrong morally, just numerous. You notice how this reframes disorder. It is not a mistake. It is multiplicity. A richness of options at the microscopic scale. Entropy is a measure of how richly many-sided the hidden arrangements are. You can feel this in language too. There are far more ways to produce a meaningless jumble of letters than a meaningful sentence. Meaning is structured and therefore rare. Noise is unstructured and therefore abundant. Keeping meaning requires constraint and guidance. Life, you begin to sense, must be doing something very special. But you do not hurry there yet. Instead, you rest with one more image. Imagine rolling a handful of sand grains onto a flat surface. They scatter into a loose pile. There are countless scattered layouts and very few perfectly stacked towers. Scatter is probable. Towers require careful placement, work, intention, constraint. Work is what nudges probability uphill locally. This is important and comforting. Probability guides the general drift, but energy flow can build small islands of unlikely order for a time. You have already seen hints of this in crystals, storms, and living bodies. Local improbabilities can bloom when powered. Global probability still keeps the books. You feel the gentleness of that balance. Chance below. Pattern above. Random steps composing reliable music when heard together. Entropy is not blind chaos, it is statistical storytelling across immense casts of characters. As sleep draws closer, the numbers grow too large to hold sharply, and that is fine. You keep only the feeling that what happens next in nature is guided less by strict rules of must and more by soft rules of most likely. And with that feeling comes a new, drifting curiosity. If probability shapes how order relaxes and spreads, then what was the probability landscape like at the very beginning, when the universe itself was young, bright, and strangely ordered? You begin by letting your sense of scale grow wide, wider than cities, wider than planets, wider than the quiet spiral of galaxies. You drift backward through time, not quickly, not as a jump, but as a gentle rewinding of expansion. Distances shrink. Light grows denser. The universe becomes warmer, brighter, closer packed. You are traveling toward the beginning, not to a point, but to a state. In this early era, the universe is not filled with stars or clusters or drifting dust. It is filled with glow. A near uniform sea of energy and particles, so hot that structure cannot yet hold its shape. Everything is immersed in light, like being inside a sunrise that has no horizon. And strangely, beautifully, this fiery beginning is a state of low entropy in a gravitational sense. It is more ordered than what comes later. This feels counterintuitive at first. You have learned that spread and uniformity often mean higher entropy. Ink mixed evenly in water has higher entropy than a tight drop. Heat evenly shared has higher entropy than heat sharply divided. So why is the early, smooth universe considered ordered? You rest with the question like a warm stone and turn it slowly. The answer lives with gravity, the quiet sculptor force that gathers matter into shapes. Gravity prefers clumping. It prefers contrast. A universe where matter is perfectly smooth is like a landscape with no valleys, full of potential structure, but none yet formed. When gravity is allowed to work, matter gathers into clouds, stars, galaxies, and black holes. These clumped states, surprisingly, correspond to higher overall entropy for gravitating systems. With gravity, lumpiness is statistically rich. Imagine a perfectly flat field of snow stretching forever, with no hills or dips. That flatness looks simple, calm, featureless. Now imagine wind and motion gradually shaping dunes and drifts, curves, ridges, deep folds. The landscape becomes more complex, more varied, more ways to arrange each grain while keeping the overall forms. Complexity rises. Gravity makes dunes out of matter. In the very early universe, matter and energy are spread almost perfectly evenly. Tiny fluctuations exist, slight overdensities, slight underdensities, but they are faint, like whispers in a large hall. Measurements of ancient radiation still visible today show these variations are only 1 part in 100,000. Smooth beyond ordinary imagination. You float through this young cosmos like a swimmer in luminous fog. Temperature everywhere is nearly the same. Density nearly the same. No stars burn because gravity has not yet gathered gas into tight enough knots. No planets orbit because no stars yet anchor them. The universe is simple, not empty, but uncomplicated. Low gravitational entropy. High potential. You notice how this connects to probability again. There are far more ways for matter under gravity to be clumped in many structures than to remain almost perfectly smooth. Smoothness is statistically special when gravity matters. It is like a deck of cards arriving already sorted, possible, but rare among all permutations. The early universe is a sorted deck on a cosmic table. You let that image rest. Not fragile, but special. As time moves forward from this bright beginning, expansion continues. Space itself stretches, carrying matter with it. Temperatures fall. Particles slow enough to combine. First simple nuclei. Later, neutral atoms. Light, once constantly scattered, begins to travel freely. The universe becomes transparent, a vast clearing of glare into visibility. This ancient light still travels today, cooled and stretched, arriving as a faint microwave whisper from every direction. A memory glow. A baby picture of the cosmos. You drift through that glow and feel its softness. Within the near-uniform gas, gravity begins its patient work. Where density is slightly higher, attraction is slightly stronger. More matter gathers. Attraction grows. Gathering accelerates. Clouds form enormous, slow, dark. Over millions of years they tighten, heat, ignite. The first stars open their eyes. Structure blooms from smoothness. Here is the gentle paradox: entropy overall increases as these structures form. Even though stars look like islands of order, their formation releases enormous energy into surrounding space, radiation, heat, motion, spreading energy more widely than before. Local order rises. Global entropy rises more. Like building a whirlpool that sends ripples outward. You sense a rhythm emerging. The universe begins in smooth order, then grows textured. Differences appear: hot and cool regions, dense and thin regions, light and dark. These differences allow processes to run. Flows begin. Stories become possible. Without gradients, nothing happens. Without imbalance, no change unfolds. You bring this down to a familiar scale. A perfectly level table with marbles at rest produces no motion. Tilt it slightly, and paths appear. Rolling begins. Interactions happen. The early universe is like a perfectly leveled table, exquisite, but inactive. Gravity introduces the tilt. Tilt creates narrative. You notice also how time feels different here. In the smooth early state, with little structure and few gradients, there are fewer distinct events to mark duration. As structure grows, clocks, physical processes multiply. Stars burn at rates. Atoms transition between states. Orbits repeat. Time gains texture because entropy-producing processes gain variety. More structure, more ways to measure change. You rest in the warmth of that idea. The richness of your experienced time is tied to the richness of cosmic structure, which itself grows from tiny early irregularities amplified by gravity and expansion together. Small differences, long consequences. Those early fluctuations, minute as they are essential. Without them, gravity would have nothing to amplify. The universe might remain a smooth fog forever. No stars. No chemistry. No life. Just uniform glow slowly thinning. You feel a quiet gratitude for imperfection. A slight unevenness becomes galaxies. A tiny imbalance becomes you. You drift once more through that early brightness and notice how calm it feels. No explosions yet. No collisions of worlds. Just dense light, simple particles, nearly uniform conditions. A beginning that is not chaotic, but serene like a held breath before music. You begin in darkness, not empty darkness, but spacious darkness. The universe has expanded and cooled enough for light to travel freely. Vast clouds of hydrogen and helium drift like slow weather across unimaginable distances. They are thin beyond comparison, yet enormous beyond measure. Nothing shines yet. But everything is ready. You float beside one of these clouds and notice that it is not perfectly even. Some regions are slightly denser, only a little, but enough. Gravity feels those differences. Where matter is thicker, gravity pulls more strongly. Where gravity pulls more strongly, more matter gathers. The gathering feeds itself. A whisper becomes a pull. A pull becomes a fall. You watch the cloud contract slowly, like breath drawn inward over millions of years. As particles fall toward the center, their motion speeds up. Collisions grow more frequent. Temperature rises. The core grows crowded, restless, hot. What was once a diffuse mist becomes a tightening sphere. Gravity composes by compression. This compression is not quiet at the microscopic scale. Each inward fall turns gravitational energy into particle motion, into heat. The center grows hotter and denser until a threshold is reached. Atomic nuclei begin to merge. Hydrogen becomes helium. Fusion ignites. A star is born. You rest in the glow of this moment. It is not an explosion but an arrival, a steady turning on. A balance forms between gravity pulling inward and radiation pushing outward. The star holds its size like a sustained musical note between two equal forces. Equilibrium sings in fire. From far away, a star looks like a simple point of light. From nearby, it is a layered conversation of physics, pressure, temperature, quantum rules, radiation flow. At its core, fusion rearranges matter into tighter nuclei, releasing energy because the new arrangement is more tightly bound. Binding releases light. You notice something subtle and important. A star is a place of increased local order, matter gathered, structured, layered, yet its existence increases total entropy more quickly than the diffuse cloud did. The energy it radiates streams outward into colder space, spreading in every direction, becoming more diluted, more widely shared. Local order. Global spread. It is like building a lighthouse that sends light across an entire coast. The structure is concentrated, but the radiation is distributed. Entropy's accounting includes both and the spreading winds. Stars are not violations of entropy. They are engines of it. You let that settle gently. Creation here is not the opposite of the universal drift, it is one of its most effective expressions. By forming hot, dense cores surrounded by cold space, gravity creates steep energy gradients. Those gradients allow enormous flows of radiation. Entropy rises faster because stars exist. Difference enables generosity. You imagine entropy as a tide slowly rising, and stars as temporary islands, bright, structured, magnificent, standing against the water for a time while also feeding its streams of light. Their resistance is also their contribution. Islands against the tide, and part of it too. Around many young stars, leftover disks of gas and dust spin like soft rings. Inside them, grains collide and stick. Pebbles grow into rocks, rocks into worlds. Planets assemble through patient accumulation. More local order appears: spheres, layers, atmospheres, chemistry. Complexity nests inside starlight. You drift past one forming planetary system and see how structure emerges through selection. Collisions that shatter too violently erase progress. Collisions that are gentle build it. Over time, stable orbits dominate because unstable ones remove themselves. Probability again shapes architecture. Survival writes the pattern. Stars do not live forever. You sense this even as you admire their steady glow. Fusion consumes fuel. Core composition changes. Balance shifts. For small stars, the ending is gentle outer layers drift away, leaving a dense ember. For massive stars, the ending is dramatic collapse, rebound, explosion, heavy elements forged and scattered outward. Death becomes distribution. Those scattered elements, carbon, oxygen, iron, and more, seed future clouds. Later stars form from enriched material. Planets with complex chemistry become possible. Your own atoms, you realize softly, are recycled stardust assembled, burned, dispersed, and gathered again. You are downstream of ancient light. Each stellar life increases entropy in multiple ways: by radiating heat into cold space, by dispersing material, by converting concentrated nuclear energy into widely shared photons. The night sky, though it looks calm, is a grand entropic engine field. Quiet to the eye, busy to the ledger. You notice how stars also create contrast: bright and dark, hot and cold, dense and sparse. These contrasts drive further processes: atmospheric flows on planets, chemical reactions, possibly biology. Gradients are invitations to change. Stars write invitations everywhere their light touches. Energy differences are opportunities. You return to the image of the tide. Entropy continues to rise across the universe, yet not as a featureless flood. It rises with texture, with galaxies, clusters, filaments, because gravity shapes matter into nested hierarchies. Structure does not stop the tide. It gives the tide patterns. Patterned rising. From a distance of deep time, you see generations of stars, first, second, third, each contributing to the chemical richness and radiative spread of the cosmos. The overall direction remains the same: more energy dispersed, more arrangements accessible, more entropy accumulated. Direction with decoration. You feel no sadness in this, only awe. Temporary does not mean trivial. A candle that burns for an hour still fills a room with light. A star that burns for billions of years fills galaxies with possibility. Duration is relative to scale, but contribution is real at every length. Temporary can still be tremendous. As your thoughts grow softer, you sense that among all these local islands of order, stars, planets, chemical webs, something even more delicate can appear. A pattern that maintains itself actively. A structure that feeds on gradients and exports entropy deliberately. A living whirlpool in the cosmic flow, and you begin to turn gently toward it. You begin by bringing your attention closer again, from stars and galaxies back to something more intimate. Your breath. Your warmth. The quiet rhythm inside your chest. After traveling across cosmic clouds and stellar fire, you return to the most familiar mystery of all, the fact that you are alive. Life can seem, at first glance, like a contradiction to everything you have been gently learning. Entropy spreads. Structures loosen. Differences soften. And yet here you are, highly organized, intricately arranged, continuously repairing yourself. Cells maintain boundaries. Molecules assemble into precise machinery. Patterns persist. It can feel like life stands against the tide. But tonight you see more clearly, life does not oppose the tide. Life surfs it. Imagine a whirlpool in a river. Water flows downhill as always, guided by gravity, spreading energy along the way. The whirlpool does not stop the river. It forms because of the river. Flowing water creates the stable spinning pattern. Remove the flow, and the whirlpool vanishes. You are like that, a stable pattern made for movement. Your body maintains its order by allowing energy to pass through it. You take in concentrated energy in food, in sunlight stored by plants, in chemical bonds shaped by earlier stars. You release that energy in more spread-out forms, heat into the air, lower energy molecules, dispersed motion. Local order. Exported entropy. This is the central softness. Life is not a violation of thermodynamics. It is one of its most beautiful expressions. A living system is an open system, not sealed, not isolated, exchanging energy and matter with its surroundings constantly. You are a doorway, not a container. Inside your cells, tiny molecular machines assemble and disassemble with exquisite selectivity. Proteins fold into specific shapes. DNA strands unzip and copy. Membranes maintain gradients, different concentrations inside and outside. Each of these ordered states is statistically rare by itself. Work is required to hold them. That work comes from energy flow. Your cells run on controlled chemical reactions that release usable energy step by step, like descending a staircase rather than falling off a cliff. Each step powers arrangement, building, transporting, repairing, while overall energy becomes more spread. A careful cascade. You imagine a brick building beside a hill. Bricks at the top hold potential energy. As they move downward, that energy can be used to turn wheels, to lift smaller stones into arches and rooms. The final state has bricks lower overall, energy more dispersed, but local structures built along the way. Life builds rooms while the hill is being descended. Metabolism is this descending, a guided release of energy from high-energy molecules toward lower-energy ones, capturing small portions of the drop to maintain internal structure. Sugar becomes carbon dioxide in water. Oxygen accepts electrons. Heat drifts outward. Order is paid for with gradients. You feel your warmth again, gentle, steady. Your body temperature is higher than the room around you. That difference exists because metabolism continuously releases heat. Without ongoing energy flow, your temperature would equalize with the environment, and the organized processes of life would stop. Warmth is a sign of active imbalance. Living systems also manage information, another kind of order. Genetic sequences store instructions. Neural connections store memories. These are patterns that resist randomization through constant renewal. Molecules are replaced. Connections are strengthened or pruned through activity. Memory is maintained probability. There are far more ways for your neural wiring to be scrambled than meaningfully arranged, just as there are more random letter strings than poems. Your brain preserves meaningful structure by spending energy pumping ions, rebuilding proteins, adjusting synapses. Thought has a thermodynamic cost. You do not feel that cost directly. It appears as hunger, as fatigue, as the need for sleep, gentle signals that gradients must be restored. Food replenishes chemical differences. Rest resets neural patterns. Breathing restores gas balances. You continuously rebuild the slopes that let your inner rivers run. Rest is gradient renewal. You notice something else comforting. Life does not create perfect order. It creates workable order, flexible, adaptive, self-correcting. Cells make mistakes and fix many of them. DNA copies with errors and repairs most. Organisms drift and adjust. The order of life is dynamic, not rigid. Living order breathes. This flexibility is not weakness. It is statistical wisdom. Perfect rigidity would shatter under fluctuation. Adaptive order bends and persists. Like a tree in wind, not a glass tower. Entropy still rises overall while this happens. Every heartbeat sends heat outward. Every motion increases microscopic disorder around you slightly. Your continued structure is balanced by increased spread elsewhere. The universal accounting remains consistent and calm. No debt is ignored, only redistributed. You imagine Earth as seen from space at night, cities glowing, networks shining. These lights mark places where energy flows intensely, maintaining pockets of extreme order, technology, culture, language, all powered by gradients ultimately traced to starlight or planetary heat. Civilization is layered metabolism. Plants capture sunlight, low entropy radiation from a hot star, and convert it into chemical structure. Animals eat plants or other animals. Energy steps down through the web, each step releasing heat, each step increasing total entropy while supporting local pattern. Sunlight becomes story. You rest in the gentleness of this realization. You are not an exception to the universe's drift. You are a temporary, beautiful configuration that exists because the drift provides usable slopes. Entropy's rise is not your enemy. It is the reason gradients exist, and gradients are what make processes, including life, possible. The river allows the whirlpool. As you grow drowsier, your sense of boundary softens. Your breath exchanges molecules with the air. Your warmth mingles with the room. Your atoms will one day circulate onward into other systems, other patterns. Continuity without permanence. participation without possession. You begin by floating beyond familiar constellations, past the luminous arms of galaxies, past the twinkling clusters where stars once burned brightly. Time stretches behind you and ahead of you, immense and slow. The universe you knew is no longer young. Its once vivid tapestries have faded to quiet tones. Galaxies, which once spun with brilliance, now appear dimmer. Stars that once shone like lanterns are exhausted, leaving only faint embers behind. Stellar nurseries have gone silent. The once bustling birthplaces of light have emptied. What remains is the memory of fire, diffused across space. You watch the cosmic ballet slow. Orbits lengthen as gravitational interactions weaken over vast distances. Collisions between massive objects become rare. Motion itself becomes subdued, a hushed whisper of what once roared. Entropy has taken its quiet toll. Energy differences, once sharp and abundant, are gradually evening out. Hot regions cool, cold regions warm, and the gradients that powered stellar furnaces fade. The universe is leveling, like a landscape in soft evening light. Peaks and valleys of energy gently blur. You feel the subtle melancholy of this vast flattening. It is not tragic. It is inevitable, serene, like water spreading over a smooth plain. Every photon, every particle, every wave of motion is part of the same quieting flow. The cosmos is not violent in this slowing, only gentle, a graceful drift toward uniformity. You notice that this is not emptiness. Space is still full of particles, photons, and dark matter. Motion continues, just less dramatically than before. Collisions still happen, but they are infrequent, unremarkable, almost meditative. The dance of the universe has softened into a slow, measured waltz. As galaxies fade, so do the lights that once defined time and space for you. Without the bright punctuation of stars, the universe feels more like a vast, smooth sea. You begin to sense the subtle currents of remaining energy, the faint whispers of particles moving, carrying tiny amounts of heat, exchanging momentum in almost invisible ways. You rest with the notion that this slowing is part of the same story you have followed from the first gentle drift of things, through stars, life, and local structures. It is the same universal tide, only now the currents are weaker, the motion more subdued, and the differences between regions smaller. Time itself seems to stretch, the arrow of change almost imperceptible. And yet, even in this calm, the rules you have learned still apply. Energy spreads, motion continues, entropy rises, just at a much slower pace. The universe is not frozen, only softened. Processes continue at scales and rates beyond your immediate perception. A single photon may drift for billions of years before interacting again. Even the faintest thermal motions persist. You imagine particles exchanging energy in slow, rare collisions. You imagine a galaxy-sized cloud of gas, cooling, diffusing, expanding. The crowd of particles becomes sparser, motion gentler, randomness more complete. Each local difference that once allowed stars to shine and life to flourish has diminished. The world of concentrated activity has receded. There is a strange beauty here. The universe is vast, almost unimaginably vast, and yet its slowing feels intimate. You can almost hear the faint hum of particles moving across distances greater than galaxies, whispering to one another in collisions too rare and too gentle to excite notice. Every exchange is a small contribution to the gradual march toward balance. You feel your own presence within this story. You are a temporary observer, made of atoms once forged in stars, aware of processes that span billions of years. The fading light of distant suns reminds you of your own impermanence, yet also of your connectedness to this immense, gradually quieting cosmos. You have watched creation rise and fade, and now you witness the soft settling into equilibrium. Even now, galaxies continue their slow evolution. Black holes, the remnants of collapsed stars, drift in silence, occasionally consuming sparse matter. Their gravitational influence stretches far but gentle, tugging particles into slow orbits. The remaining stars, mostly dim dwarfs, twinkle faintly for eons, a quiet rebellion against the surrounding dark. You think about motion on the largest scales. With less energy concentrated in stars and cosmic structures, collisions become rarer. Galaxy clusters drift apart, space itself stretching. Gravitational interactions weaken. The intricate cosmic web that once connected clusters of galaxies loosens. The universe becomes smoother, less textured, more uniform. You reflect on the inevitability of this gradual fading. The arrow of time continues to point forward. Entropy continues to increase, even in the absence of dramatic events. The gentle spreading of energy, the slow loss of gradients, the leveling of motion, all these continue without fanfare. The cosmos does not resist its own drift, it moves in quiet compliance with the laws you have been exploring. You allow yourself to feel the calmness of this scene. There is no rush, no urgency, no catastrophe. The fading of galaxies is a peaceful transformation. The heat that once powered grand stellar furnaces is now dispersed. Motion is slower, but not absent. Light still moves, if sparsely. Particles still collide, if rarely. The universe becomes a place of gentle equilibrium, not violent silence. In this vast, slow universe, you sense that life, too, is transient. Stars that once birthed planets in chemistry capable of supporting life have burned through their fuel. Any civilizations that arose are themselves ephemeral. Yet all that once existed has contributed to the dispersal of energy, the spread of matter, the creation of the intricate conditions that allowed patterns to emerge. Everything has played a part in the gradual, quiet unfolding. You drift further, imagining the last traces of active processes. Supernovae are long extinguished. Gas clouds have thinned, temperatures have equalized, motion has slowed. Entropy has risen relentlessly. Energy gradients, once vivid, are now gentle slopes that require eons to traverse. Yet the universe is not dead, it is simply quiet, immense, and orderly in its own slow way. And as you rest within this immense quiet, you feel the continuum of change. The universe's story is ongoing, even when the brilliance of stars has faded. Motion continues, albeit subtly. Energy continues to disperse. Entropy continues its patient rise. You sense that even in this fading, the same principles that guided the formation of galaxies, stars, and life still apply. The same gentle currents shape the cosmos, now in almost imperceptible ways. You notice that this softening of motion prepares the stage for the final chapters of the universe's tale. Energy differences will continue to diminish. Motion will slow further. The cosmos will approach a state where change occurs at an almost infinitesimal pace, a vast stillness where particles are spread evenly and heat is scarce. It is a quiet, inevitable unfolding, a gentle surrender to equilibrium. And as you drift towards sleep with the universe's slowing currents echoing in your mind, a subtle thought emerges: if all motion fades, if energy differences vanish, what becomes of the islands of structure that once shone so brightly? How will the cosmos express itself when even the faintest currents begin to settle into stillness? You begin by letting the universe expand even further in your mind's eye. Time stretches into billions of years beyond the dim galaxies you have just watched. The spaces between stars and clusters grow larger. Distances that once seemed immense now stretch into near incomprehensible scales. The universe is colder, slower, more diffuse. Motion itself is soft and sparse. Light that once blazed from vibrant stars has weakened. Photons travel longer stretches without encountering matter. Their energies stretch as space expands, shifting to longer, colder wavelengths. What once glimmered brightly now whispers faintly, like distant echoes of a long-forgotten song. The sky is no longer dotted with points of fire but suffused with a soft, diffused glow. You notice how particle collisions, once lively and constant in stellar nurseries, are now rare. Hydrogen atoms drift in enormous clouds, encountering one another infrequently. Molecules, once tightly bound in planetary atmospheres and living cells, are long gone in most regions. The energetic interactions that powered chemistry, fusion, and metabolism are now mostly exhausted. Only the occasional rare encounter remains, almost imperceptible in its effect. This is the long cooling. A universal exhalation, a slow, steady settling of energy toward uniformity. Temperature differences are minimal. Regions that were once warmer or cooler have evened out. Heat has drifted into the farthest corners of space. The warmth that once animated stars, planets, and life itself has been shared, spread, and dispersed. What remains is calmness and gentle, steady balance. You imagine standing on the edge of one of these enormous, faint gas clouds. There is almost no movement. The usual cosmic dances of swirling gas and collapsing cores have largely ceased. The occasional flicker of residual heat moves like a lazy ripple, barely disturbing the vast emptiness. Even gravity's influence is diminished in its effect, as matter is now so thinly spread that its pull is gentle, almost abstract. You feel a profound serenity in this image. The universe is no longer a place of dramatic contrasts or bustling interactions. It has become spacious, still, and quiet. And yet, this stillness is not emptiness. Space is filled with particles and radiation, slowly moving, diffusing, existing. There is balance, not barrenness. The cosmos has not vanished, it has simply reached a state of gentle equilibrium. Entropy continues its patient rise. The few remaining differences in energy and density are gradually smoothing out. The universe approaches a state where gradients, the very things that once powered stars, chemistry, and life, are so faint as to be almost imperceptible. Change still occurs, but only at scales beyond ordinary perception, on timescales far longer than a human lifetime. It is a slow, inexorable drift toward uniformity. You let yourself feel this vast calm. Imagine a river that once rushed violently over rocks, forming rapids and waterfalls. Over eons, it widens, slows, and eventually flows gently across a broad plain. The water is still moving, but it no longer crashes, churns, or foams. The universe, too, has become a slow, meandering stream of energy and matter, smooth and soft. Light, too, has transformed. Photons stretching into lower energies illuminate the vast space with faint whispers of their former brilliance. These long waves carry stories of stars long gone, carrying the memory of processes that shaped the cosmos billions of years ago. They are echoes, softened and stretched, moving steadily across expanding space. You can almost feel their gentle, persistent drift. You notice how this long cooling affects matter on all scales. Gas clouds become diffuse, stars long extinguished, planets cold and dark. Even black holes, though still massive, radiate only slowly, their energy dispersing as Hawking radiation over unimaginable timescales. The universe is vast and sparse, and what little energy remains spreads across enormous distances, smoothing out differences that once defined space. And yet, you sense the elegance in this fading. The processes that once created fire, structure, and life now leave behind a serene universe, patterned only in the softest gradients. There is no chaos, no collapse, no destruction, only gradual spreading, subtle motion, and patient leveling. Entropy's rise has not destroyed beauty, it has redefined it as calm, gentle, and even. You reflect on the relationship between motion and experience. In your own life, movement brings action, energy, and warmth. In the universe, the slowing of motion brings quiet, equilibrium, and stability. Both states are valid, both are natural. Life and change exist when gradients are strong, serenity exists when gradients fade. The universe, in this long cooling, teaches patience, gentleness, and acceptance. You imagine the final whispers of particle interactions. Hydrogen atoms in the void drift slowly, colliding occasionally, exchanging minute amounts of energy. Photons move across empty space, carrying faint heat from the few remaining sources. Even this sparse motion contributes to entropy, to the gradual leveling of energy differences. The cosmos continues its drift, gentle, inevitable, unhurried. You feel the softness of time stretching almost infinitely. Events that once took minutes now take eons. Stars that lived for billions of years are reduced to faint relics. Collisions that shaped worlds become incredibly rare. The universe is large, quiet, and almost still, yet not empty. It is a vast, soft equilibrium. And in this long cooling, you sense a subtle lesson. Even as energy differences fade, even as motion slows, the universe retains its story. The rise and fall of stars, the birth of elements, the fleeting existence of life, all are encoded in the distribution of matter and energy. The record of what has been lingers in the slow, steady drift of particles and photons across space. You let this thought rest gently in your mind. There is peace in the inevitability of change. There is comfort in the order created through gradual leveling. The cosmos has reached a state where processes are minimal, interactions are rare, and motion is subdued. Yet it remains vast, full, and subtle in its ongoing existence. As your awareness drifts further, you sense the universe's quiet rhythm. A slow, almost imperceptible heartbeat persists in the motion of particles and photons. Entropy continues to rise, but now at a nearly imperceptible pace. The grand story moves forward without spectacle, without flash, without the bright drama of stars and galaxies. It is soft, sustained, and eternal in its calmness. And as your thoughts begin to sink into sleep alongside this cooling, expansive cosmos, a gentle question rises: if the universe continues to grow colder, dimmer, and slower, what form will balance take in the final chapters? How will light, matter, and energy behave when gradients become nearly imperceptible, when motion is scarce, and when equilibrium stretches across the immense, silent sea? You begin by letting your mind drift even further into the distant future. Galaxies are no longer visible, stars are extinguished, and the last whispers of light stretch thin across the expanding void. The universe is vast, sparse, and quiet. Time seems to stretch without the familiar markers of motion or energy contrast. You sense that the cosmos is approaching a state unlike anything you have experienced before, the ultimate equilibrium. This is the state scientists call heat death. The term may sound dramatic, but there is no fiery apocalypse here. There is no violence, no collapse, no rupture. Instead, there is balance. Perfect, uniform, absolute balance. All energy differences have flattened. Temperature is constant everywhere. Motion is minimal and nearly imperceptible. The universe has become a calm, featureless sea of particles and radiation. You rest within this image, letting the idea settle gently. Imagine a room where the air is the same temperature throughout, where every particle drifts slowly and evenly, where no winds, no gradients, no flickers disturb the stillness. Energy has spread so completely that no process can extract work. There are no usable differences left to fuel change. Every region, every particle, every photon is part of the same vast, quiet pattern. Entropy has reached its maximum. Every arrangement that is possible, given the constraints of the universe, has been explored. The cosmos has sampled the full landscape of probabilities. There are no hidden surprises remaining. What remains is uniformity, calm, and the soft, infinite quiet of completion. You notice how different this is from the lively, bustling universe of your earlier journeys. There are no stars, no planets, no life. There are no gradients to drive processes, no differences to create motion. The universe has exhausted its capacity to do work. Even the faintest flickers of energy are evenly distributed, flowing nowhere in particular, contributing nothing new to structure or change. And yet, this is not emptiness. There is substance, faint light, particles, radiation, all diffused evenly. There is still existence, still matter and energy, still the quiet persistence of what remains. The universe has not vanished. It has simply arrived at a state where all motion and energy differences have been balanced, where the flow of time continues without the drama of change, where entropy has quietly reached its peak. You feel the serenity of this moment. There is no tension, no urgency, no collapse. The cosmos is not chaotic, it is calm. There is a completeness here, a perfect fulfillment of the physical laws that guided the universe from its first bright simplicity to this ultimate stillness. It is as if the universe has exhaled its last breath and now rests, fully at peace. You sense that the story of motion and change is no longer visible. Gradients that once fueled the creation of stars, galaxies, planets, and life have disappeared. Differences that once allowed chemistry and biology to unfold have flattened. Energy is everywhere and nowhere at once, evenly spread, with no gradients to exploit. The universe is a soft, infinite equilibrium, a silent testament to the relentless march of entropy. You imagine yourself drifting through this quiet cosmos. There is no up or down, no fast or slow. All is uniform, soft, and gentle. The laws of physics persist, but without differences to act upon. Forces exist, but the gradients that once drove them are gone. Motion exists, but the scale is so vast and the energy so evenly spread that change is imperceptible. The universe is neither dead nor alive. It simply is. Even in this stillness, the universe retains a kind of subtle rhythm. The rare interactions of particles and photons continue, but they are infinitesimal, nearly undetectable. Energy continues to exist, matter continues to exist, but nothing new emerges. There are no structures to form, no stars to burn, no life to awaken. The universe has reached the limit of possibility, the quiet edge of physical law. You reflect on the profound beauty of this state. It is not chaotic. It is not violent. It is complete. There is a sense of inevitability, of natural closure. The cosmos has fully explored its range of possibilities and arrived at a state of uniform serenity. Every fluctuation, every gradient, every chance interaction has played its role. The result is perfect balance. And yet, there is a lingering softness in the thought, even in this state of equilibrium, there is potential for observation, for reflection, for presence. You imagine yourself as a temporary awareness drifting through this balanced cosmos, a mind noting the vast, gentle calm, appreciating the totality of existence in a universe where all motion has softened and all energy differences have flattened. In this ultimate quiet, you understand the lessons carried through every chapter of the universe's journey. From the first flicker of particles in the smooth early universe to the glowing fire of stars, from the patterning of life to the fading of galaxies, all processes have been guided by the same principles: the flow of energy, the spread of entropy, the shaping of probabilities, and the inevitable leveling of gradients. The story has been one of balance, growth, and eventual calm. You notice the poetry of this final state. It is a gentle, perfect symmetry, a calmness that is not absence but fulfillment. The universe has completed its long march, achieving the only true state allowed by the relentless increase of entropy, a serene, uniform equilibrium. There is no turbulence, no drama, no tension. Everything has gently flowed into its rightful place. You rest in the thought of perfect uniformity. Energy differences are gone. Motion is almost imperceptible. Temperature is constant. The cosmos has ceased to do work, but it still exists. It has not ended. It has simply arrived at a state where further change is statistically and physically impossible. It is an eternal quiet, a soft settling of all things, a peaceful completion of the cosmic story. And in this calm, you begin to understand your own impermanence in a new light. You, like all matter that once formed stars, planets, and life, are part of the vast continuum that has spread, evolved, and now rests. The processes that made you possible, fusion in stars, chemistry in planets, biology in life, are echoes in this ultimate stillness. You are a memory of the energy that once flowed differently, a trace of contrast that once existed. You feel gratitude for this journey. The universe's rise, spread, and eventual stillness are not losses. They are a continuous unfolding, a gentle expression of natural law. Everything that ever occurred, every spark, every life, every star has contributed to the universe reaching this serene equilibrium. You appreciate the calmness, the completeness, the quiet poetry of the cosmos at heat death. And as your thoughts drift gently toward rest, you sense the softest hint of curiosity lingering on the edge of awareness. If the universe rests in perfect balance, if no gradients remain to drive motion or structure, what is the meaning of existence within this calm? How do patterns, once vibrant, persist in memory or influence? You do not answer yet. You let the question float, a gentle bridge, guiding your mind toward the next chapter, your own reflection within this flowing, quiet cosmos. You begin by letting your awareness drift back from the vast, silent cosmos to your own body. The warmth of your hands, the rise and fall of your chest with each breath, the gentle pulse in your temples. After traveling across billions of years and countless light years, you return to the smallest, most personal scale, the life that is here, now, within you. You notice the rhythm of your breath. Each inhalation brings an energy, air molecules rich with oxygen, ready to participate in countless chemical reactions. Each exhalation releases warmth, carbon dioxide, and heat, spreading energy into the surroundings. You are not apart from the universe, you are a local whirlpool, a temporary pattern riding the flow of entropy. Your heartbeat is a quiet drummer in this orchestra. It circulates blood, distributes energy, and sustains order in your cells. It is not only the rhythm of life but the expression of energy gradients you continue to use, consciously or not, every second. Your body, this fragile island of structure, depends on the cosmic tide to maintain its form. You feel the intimacy of this connection. Entropy is not merely an abstract principle that applies to distant stars or fading galaxies. It is here in the way your warm breath diffuses into the cooler room, in the way your muscles expend energy, in the slow, gentle exchanges of heat that connect you to everything else. You are a participant in the ongoing flow. Life, you realize, is a temporary oasis of order. Each action, each thought, each heartbeat is a local defiance of the surrounding drift. But even this defiance is gentle, modest, and temporary. The universe's processes continue beyond your awareness, unhurried and inevitable. You are part of the story, not the director of its ultimate course. You imagine the atoms in your body, ancient travelers forged in stars long gone, recycled through planets and living beings, now gathered into your unique pattern. You are composed of elements that once flowed through distant suns, that once danced in the first stellar furnaces, that once contributed to galaxies now long faded. You are a living echo of the universe's past. And yet, you are fleeting. Your structure is maintained by the steady flow of energy through your body. Every meal, every breath, every heartbeat contributes to the maintenance of your local order while exporting disorder around you. Your life is a temporary whirlpool in the wide river of entropy, beautiful because it is transient, meaningful because it participates fully in the flow. You reflect on the subtle lessons of cosmic history. You have traveled from the early, ordered universe, through the birth of stars, the rise of life, the fading of galaxies, and the long cooling of the cosmos. Everywhere, the same principles recur: energy spreads, gradients drive change, local order arises temporarily, and entropy rises relentlessly. Your body, your thoughts, your existence, are another manifestation of these timeless currents. You allow yourself to feel gratitude for this continuity. Your existence is not separate from the universe's narrative, it is intertwined. Every molecule in you carries history. Every moment of consciousness is a ripple in the great ocean of processes that have shaped everything from the first particles to the present. You are a participant, a temporary expression of a deep, unfolding order. Your mind drifts into the softness of the present. You notice the gentle warmth of your surroundings, the subtle hum of your environment, the quiet background sounds that connect you to the wider world. You are not isolated. You are a node in a vast, intricate network of energy flows and matter exchanges. You are a pattern, fleeting but significant, in the great unfolding of the cosmos. Time, you realize, is both intimate and expansive. The seconds of your breath mirror the millennia of cosmic evolution. The spread of heat from your body echoes the long, slow diffusion of energy across the universe. The rise and fall of structures within you reflects the rise and fall of stars and galaxies. You are microcosm and macrocosm, deeply connected to the totality of existence. You feel the gentle responsibility of participation. Even small actions, a breath, a movement, a thought, are ways of interacting with gradients, of maintaining local order, of contributing to the flow of energy and information. Each choice shapes temporary patterns, which will eventually dissolve, contributing to the overall increase of entropy. You act, aware and mindful, within the universal rhythm. You imagine yourself extending outward. Your actions touch others, whose lives are whirlpools of energy and order like your own. Ideas spread, kindness radiates, warmth passes through space and time. Patterns emerge not only within you but in the network of life around you. Even as you dissolve into the wider flow eventually, the traces of your order remain, redistributed, transformed, yet persistent. You sense the beauty of impermanence. Local order is fragile, temporary, and yet deeply meaningful. Your patterns of thought, movement, and presence exist in time and space for only a moment, and that is enough. That is precisely the gift, to be a temporary structure within the ongoing, infinite unfolding of energy and matter. You rest in the intimate awareness that you are not the exception to entropy. You are part of its expression. Each heartbeat, each breath, each thought, each movement is a small, elegant defiance that also contributes to the universe's tendency to spread and balance. You are both creator and participant, transient yet essential. And as your mind softens further, you realize that patterns do not only exist in matter. They exist in thought, in memory, in connection. Every intention you carry, every act of kindness, every creative spark is a local ordering, a temporary concentration of energy and attention that radiates outward. You are, in your small way, shaping the flow around you. Your awareness drifts back to the quiet rhythm of your body. The warmth of your breath, the pulse in your veins, the gentle beating of your heart, each is a subtle reminder that order is temporary, that energy flows, and that you exist fully within this unfolding. You are not separate from the universe, you are a conscious expression of its processes. And as sleep approaches, you allow a soft, lingering thought to settle. The universe continues in its quiet, inevitable flow. You exist as a pattern within it, meaningful, temporary, and beautiful. Gradients will always rise and fall, energy will always move, and entropy will always increase. And you, in this brief moment, are a conscious, elegant ripple, part of the story, now, and into the gentle unfolding of what comes next. You feel the universe around you and within you, and you drift into rest, carrying the quiet question that will linger softly in your mind. What patterns will you form next, in this intimate moment within the vast, flowing cosmos?